Now, if you're not a cosmic girl with a body made of the light of God and conversing with angels on a daily basis, you may be wondering, how can I do anything? Well, I'm going to tell you. This is an article from a long time ago called Dissemination in Your Zone. Improvement is the common denominator of all our ideas. And of course, each one has a zone of interest where he or she feels improvement is most needed, or where he or she would be most comfortable in doing the work of improvement. And that's the gist of this group idea. It's a rather deceptive idea at first glance, since we are each of us doing something of that. But let us be far more definite, and let us expose a fallacy that has long been riding with us as an unknown passenger. People think of professional practitioners as doctors who, aloof from all other concerns, practice on the sick. This is a very novel idea, dreamed up probably by the first lazy witch doctor, and used forever thereafter by most specialists in human livingness. And here I want to get rid of and banish that idea from amongst us all. If we are doctors, by which might be meant repairers, then we are doctors on the areas of groups and mankind as a whole, and handle these only to achieve a better function within them. And most spiritual people agree, I think, with this concept. But it itself is as new and novel as the idea of being a professional practitioner to individual health once was. The largest majority of spiritual people should, I feel, consider themselves as doctors to human groups and humanity as a whole. And if we work well at this, we will have answered all our various needs and brought it off within human groups and within mankind as well. And I wouldn't be talking to you like this if I didn't feel I had this study to a conclusion. Consider our position. We have arrived at a very special plateau of knowledge, as has been reviewed above. Data on our know-how is being codified for use in these zones of action. Consider the position of the world. The story is often repeated on the history in this galaxy, as matter, energy, space, and time is made to help too much, meaning like machinery and computers. A plateau of civilization is reached in which the individual is downgraded to a number. The end of this? The lights eventually go out through lack of personal initiative and ability. We are in a fantastic position at the right time and place to halt this cycle of decay and start a new one on Earth, and I believe we should overtly do so. How? We are masters of IQ and ability. We have know-how. Any of us could select out a zone of life in which we are interested, and then, entering in, bring order and victory to it. Of course, there is a heavy challenge in doing this. Some of the victories would be hardly won, but we would win across the world if we kept our vision bright. Human groups and mankind in general subdivide. Any group breaks down into many activities and professions: a neighborhood, a business concern, a military group, a city government, etc. The human race breaks down right now mainly into races and nations. Now just suppose a spiritual person were to consider himself a professional only for the purpose of treating and repairing or even starting again these human groups and humanity in general. See this, for example, a housewife already successfully employing spirituality in her own home takes over a woman's club as secretary or some key position. She straightens up the club affairs by applying communication practices and making peace, and then, incidental to the club's main function, introduces spirituality as his own special interest in the club. Children, straightening up marriages, whatever comes to hand, and even taking fees for it. Meanwhile, of course, going on being a successful and contributing wife. Or this, a spiritual person taking on a lesser executive or even a clerk position in a company, seeing where the company is heading, begins to pick up its loose ends by straightening out its communication lines or its personnel abilities, without selling anybody. Just studied out the bogs and remedies them. If only as, in quotation marks, an able person, he would rapidly expand his zone of control, to say nothing of his personal standing in the company. This has been and is being done steadily across the world. It's easy to straighten up other people. And see this. A race staggering along, making difficulties for itself. Locate its leaders. Get a paid post as a secretary or officer of the staff of the leaders of that race. And by any means help them out and handle their affairs to bring cooperation, not trouble. Every race that is in turmoil in a nation has a quasi-social group around its leaders. Or this. A nation or state runs on the ability of its department heads, its governors, or any other leaders. It is easy to get posts in such areas unless one has delusions of grandeur or fear of it. Don't bother to get elected. Get a job on the secretarial staff or the bodyguard. Use any talent one has to get a place close in. Go to work on the environment and make it function better. Occasionally one might lose, but in the large majority, doing a good job and making the environment function will result in promotion, better contacts, a widening zone of influence. The cue in all this is don't seek the cooperation of groups. Don't ask for permission. Just enter them and start functioning to make the group win through effectiveness and sanity. If we were revolutionaries, this would be a very dangerous document. We're not revolutionaries any more than we are doctors of sickness in individual patients. But we are not revolutionaries. We are humanitarians. We are not political. And we can be the most important force for good that the world has ever known. Who objects to a company functioning better to produce a better civilization? Who objects to a race becoming sane and a stable asset to its communities? Who objects to a neighborhood smoothing out? Only the very criminal would object, and they are relatively ineffectual when you can know and spot them. And there are no criminals except the mentally disabled. So this is a challenge on human groups and humanity in general. and all spiritually aware people are in a position to begin to help on such a program. So I guess this is pretty straightforward if you're not going to be teaching at an esoteric school. You can do, follow your passion would be the best thing. If not, everyone has to have a job. I don't know many people, I was going to say any, but I have to take a look first, who have the job they love. People have jobs they got. Since you have to have a crappy job. For example, if you had to be a janitor, you'd have a better shot at this being a janitor in the building that is the city government or the state government or the provincial government. And you could keep the environment clean and uncluttered and enjoyable. And let's say someone in the government was working, they worked late, it was closing time, you were locking the doors, they wanted to get back in to grab something they forgot in the office, and you, being spiritual, would say, no problem, I'll wait for you till you come back, instead of saying, I'm sorry, we lock up at 9, and being a dickhead. And that will make a change in that person's life, which may flower out into them thinking that maybe they can make a change for the better in their position. That kind of thing. From India, there's an adage that before you're spiritually enlightened, you have to chop wood and carry water at the ashram, and when you become spiritually enlightened, you have to chop wood and carry water at the ashram. So, I know people have done this. I know someone who got a job as a court reporter. No big deal. And her husband got a job just moving the papers around the courthouse. But they were close to justice, and their cognition was, there is no justice. Don't go to court looking for justice. Which is actually a good idea. You try to settle these things out of court with notices. Something that happens when you're the unknowing victim of legal actions, the first thing the judge will mumble very quietly is, where are the notices? And the other side may have several. I had this done to me once. The lawyer started banging down all this paperwork, and I had nothing. I had no idea what was going on. I lost before it even started. It's well thought of if you try to settle things with people out of court by making offers of settlement, and you do this through a notary public. And if you don't do that, you haven't behaved honorably, so you are now dishonorable, and you wind up in a court being in a dishonor in front of his honor, the judge. So many things can be learned in a lesser position.